Jake Morrison stood alone in the observation room of the spaceship UES Horizon. Through the thick glass window, he could see millions of stars scattered across the dark space. Behind him, his fellow crew members were celebrating their latest victory against the alien fleet. They were drinking, laughing, and telling stories about the battle they had just won. But Jake did not feel like celebrating. His mind was somewhere else completely. He was thinking about Lisa Chen. Lisa worked in the communications department on the same ship. Every day, Jake heard her voice over the ship's radio system. When enemy ships attacked, Lisa was the one who sent messages between all the human ships. She told the captains where to go and what to do. Her voice was always calm and clear, even when everything around them was chaos and danger. Jake had been watching Lisa for 6 months now. Not in a creepy way, he was not that type of man. But he noticed things about her. The way she moved her hands when she worked on the computer screens. The way she never seemed to panic, even when alien ships were shooting at them. The way she always made sure every human ship received the information they needed to stay safe. The problem was that Jake had never actually talked to Lisa about anything except work. When they passed each other in the hallways, he would nod and say hello. Sometimes she would smile back, but that was all. Jake was not good at talking to women, especially women as smart and beautiful as Lisa. Every time Jake went into battle, he thought about her. When enemy lasers were flying past his head and explosions were happening all around him, his mind would drift to Lisa. He would imagine what it would be like to have a normal conversation with her. Maybe they could eat dinner together in the ship's cafeteria. Maybe they could watch the stars together from this same observation room. But those were just dreams. Jake knew that someone like Lisa would never be interested in someone like him. He was just a weapons officer. He spent his days shooting at enemy ships and maintaining laser cannons. Lisa was important. She helped coordinate entire battles. She was probably too busy to think about romance anyway. The war against the alien consortium had been going on for 2 years now. The aliens had better technology and more ships than the humans. Every expert said that humanity should have lost this war a long time ago, but somehow the human fleet kept winning battles. Other alien species in the galaxy called it luck. They said humans were just fortunate. But Jake knew it was something else. Humans had something that the aliens did not understand. When humans fought, they were not just following orders or trying to capture territory. They were fighting for their families back on Earth. They were fighting for their friends standing next to them. They were fighting for the future they wanted to build. Jake looked out at the stars again. Somewhere out there, billions of miles away, was Earth. His parents still lived there in a small town in Ohio. His sister had just gotten married last year, right before he left for military service. He wondered if he would ever see them again. Tadimo. Truth was that Jake was tired of war. He was tired of shooting at alien ships. He was tired of watching good people die in battles. He was tired of living on a spaceship, eating the same processed food every day and never seeing a real sunset. What he really wanted was peace. He wanted to go home to Earth and build a normal life. He wanted to find someone special to share that life with. And if he was being completely honest with himself, he wanted that someone to be Lisa Chen. Jake had never told anyone about his feelings for Lisa. Not his roommate Kevin, who was always trying to set him up with other women on the ship. Not the ship's counselor, who encouraged everyone to talk about their emotions. Not even his own diary, which he sometimes wrote in when he could not sleep. But standing there in the observation room, with the stars as his only witnesses, Jake felt the words building up inside him. The feelings he had been carrying for 6 months were becoming too heavy to hold alone. He looked around to make sure no one else was in the room. The celebration was still going on in the main recreation area, and he could hear laughter and music coming from down the hallway. But here, in this quiet space, he was completely alone. Jake took a deep breath. His heart was beating fast, even though he was not talking to anyone real. Just saying the words out loud felt dangerous, like he was admitting something that could never be taken back. "If I survive this war," Jake whispered to the empty room, "I am going to marry that woman." The words came out so quietly that even he could barely hear them, but saying them felt like a weight lifting off his chest. For 6 months, he had carried these feelings in secret. Now at least the stars knew how he felt. Jake stood there for a moment longer, feeling both relieved and terrified. What if someone had heard him? What if Lisa somehow found out? What would she think of him then? That was when he heard a voice behind him. You will." Jake's blood turned to ice. He spun around so fast that he almost lost his balance. Lisa Chen was standing in the doorway. Jake stared at Lisa, unable to move or speak. His face felt hot and his mouth had gone completely dry. Lisa was standing in the doorway of the observation room, and the light from the hallway was behind her. He could not see her face clearly, but he could tell she was looking directly at him. How long had she been standing there? How much had she heard? "Lisa," Jake finally managed to say. His voice cracked like he was 13 years old again. How long have you been there?" Lisa stepped into the observation room. Now Jake could see her face, and she did not look angry or shocked. Instead, she looked calm, maybe even a little amused. This made Jake feel even more confused. "Long enough," Lisa said simply. "Long enough to hear what I have been hoping someone would say for 6 months." Jake felt like his brain had stopped working. What did that mean? Was she saying what he thought she was saying? Or was she just being kind because she felt sorry for him? Before Jake could figure out how to respond, the ship's alarm system started making loud noises. Red lights began flashing in the hallways. The celebration sounds from the recreation area suddenly stopped. Captain Roy Bennett's voice came through the ship's speaker system. "All crew members report to battle stations immediately. Enemy ships detected at coordinates 77 Alpha. This is not a practice drill. Repeat, this is not a practice drill." The moment was broken. Lisa's small communication device on her belt started making beeping sounds. She looked down at it, and her expression changed from personal to professional in an instant. "I have to go," Lisa said, already moving toward the door. "The communications center will be busy for the next few hours." Jake watched her go, but she paused at the doorway and looked back at him. "Jake," she said, and there was something different in her voice now. Something warm and determined. "We will finish this conversation later, after we show these aliens why they should not mess with humans." Then she was gone, hurrying down the hallway toward her workstation. Jake stood in the observation room for another 10 seconds, trying to process what had just happened. Had Lisa Chen really just accepted his marriage proposal? Well, it had. Not exactly been a proposal, more like a wish he had made to the empty room. But she had said "I." She had said she hoped someone would say those words. She had implied that she had been thinking about him for 6 months too. Another alarm sounded, louder this time. Jake shook his head and forced himself to focus. Whatever had just happened between him and Lisa would have to wait. Right now there was a battle to fight. Jake ran through the hallways toward the weapons control center. Other crew members were running too, all heading to their assigned positions. The ship felt different during these moments, more serious, more focused. Everyone knew their job, and everyone did it without complaining. When Jake reached the weapons control center, his partner Kevin Ross was already there, warming up the targeting systems. "There you are," Kevin said. "I was wondering where you went. Did you hear what happened?" "Just that there are enemy ships nearby," Jake said, sliding into his chair and beginning his pre-battle checklist. "Not just nearby," Kevin said. "Captain Bennett says there are at least 50 alien ships heading straight for us, and they have some kind of new weapon we have never seen before." Jake's hands moved quickly over his control panel, checking systems and loading weapons. But part of his mind was still thinking about Lisa. For 6 months he had gone into battle thinking about her, but it had always been one-sided. He had imagined conversations they might have or dates they might go on, but he never really believed she thought about him too. Now everything was different. Now he knew she had been hoping for exactly what he had been hoping for. Now he had a reason to survive this battle that went beyond duty or patriotism. "Kevin," Jake said as he finished his system checks, "can I ask you something?" Sure, but make it quick. Looks like the aliens will be in weapons range in about 10 minutes. If you really cared about someone, and you had never told them how you felt, and then suddenly you found out they cared about you too, how would that change the way you fought? Kevin looked at Jake with a confused expression. That is a weird question to ask right before a battle, man. Are you feeling okay? Just answer the question. Kevin thought for a moment. I guess if I had someone special to fight for, someone who was counting on me to come home, I would fight harder than ever before. Why? Is there something you want to tell me? Before Jake could answer, Lisa's voice came through the communication system. She was talking to all the ships in the human fleet, giving them information about enemy positions and battle plans. But Jake heard something in her voice that he had never noticed before. It was still professional and calm, but there was also something personal there. Something that made him think she was not just doing her job. She was protecting people she cared about. All ships. This is Communications Officer Chen, Lisa's voice said through the speakers. Enemy vessels are approaching from 3 directions. Phoenix Wing, adjust your position to coordinates 447. Liberty Squadron, prepare for defensive maneuvers. Remember, everyone, we are not just fighting for territory today. We are fighting to protect everything we care about. Jake felt his heart start beating faster, but not from fear. For the first time in his military career, he was going into battle knowing that someone special was counting on him to survive. Someone who had been thinking about him the same way he had been thinking about her. The targeting screen in front of Jake lit up with enemy ship positions. 53 alien vessels, just like Kevin had said. They were big ships, heavily armed, and they were coming fast. But Jake felt ready for them in a way he had never felt ready before. The battle began 15 minutes later, and it was unlike anything Jake had ever experienced. The alien ships came at them in a formation that looked like a giant arrow pointing straight at the human fleet. In the center of their formation was something Jake had never seen before, a massive ship that was twice the size of anything in the human fleet. It was dark purple and had strange symbols glowing along its sides. What is that thing? Kevin asked, staring at his screen. Captain, Bennett's voice came through the speakers. Intelligence reports say it is some kind of new weapon. It can disrupt our technology using quantum energy fields. All ships stay alert and be ready to adapt. Jake felt his weapon systems working differently than usual. Normally, his targeting computer would lock onto enemy ships automatically. But today the system kept flickering and losing its lock. The aliens' new weapon was already affecting their technology. This is not good, Kevin said. If we cannot target properly, how are we supposed to fight back? That was when Lisa's voice came through Jake's personal communication device. She was not speaking to the whole fleet this time. She was speaking directly to him. Jake, I am sending you manual targeting data for the 3 ships approaching from your left side. The automatic systems are not working properly, but I can calculate the positions by hand. Jake looked at his screen and saw the targeting information Lisa had sent him. It was perfect, more accurate than his computer had ever been. He fired 3 shots and watched all 3 enemy ships explode. How did you do that? Kevin asked. My targeting system is completely messed up, but yours seems to be working fine. Jake did not explain that Lisa was personally calculating targeting data for him. Instead, he said, try switching to manual mode and use the backup systems. Over the next hour, Jake and Lisa worked together in a way that surprised both of them. She would send him targeting information, and he would provide cover fire for the rescue ships she was coordinating. They developed a rhythm. Lisa would spot enemy ships that were threatening human vessels. Jake would eliminate those threats, and then Lisa would guide the rescued ships to safety. Other crew members began to notice that Jake's accuracy had improved dramatically. Lieutenant Kevin kept asking how Jake was hitting targets that seemed impossible to reach. Man, you are fighting like your life depends on it today, Kevin said, after Jake successfully destroyed 5 enemy ships in a row. Not my life, Jake said, quietly, making another adjustment based on Lisa's latest data. My future. What Jake did not know was that the same thing was happening all over the human fleet. Other crew members were fighting with unusual intensity and creativity. The ship's cook was helping with ammunition supply and working twice as fast as normal. The engineers were fixing damaged systems in record time. Even the medical staff were treating wounded soldiers with extra care and attention. It was as if the entire fleet had suddenly remembered what they were fighting for. Captain Bennett noticed it too. From the bridge, he could see that his crew was performing beyond their normal capabilities. Ships that should have been destroyed were somehow surviving. Weapons that should have failed were still working. Strategies that should not have succeeded were winning battles. The aliens were confused. Their new quantum weapon was supposed to disable human technology, but the humans kept adapting. Every time the aliens thought they had figured out human tactics, the humans would try something completely different. Lisa's voice came through the fleet communication system again. All ships, enemy reinforcements approaching from the north sector. But do not worry, I have been tracking their patterns and I think I know their weakness. She paused, and when she spoke again, her voice carried a confidence that spread from ship to ship. These aliens fight like machines. They follow rules and stick to plans. But we are human. We can change our minds in the middle of a battle. We can take risks that make no sense to them. We can fight for reasons they do not understand. Jake felt Lisa's words hit him like physical force. She was right. The aliens were fighting to conquer territory or gather resources, but the humans were fighting for something the aliens could not comprehend. Jake was fighting for the chance to have a future with Lisa. Lisa was coordinating rescue operations like she was protecting her own family. Kevin was providing backup, fire like he was defending his home. Captain Bennett was making strategic decisions like he was protecting his children. The aliens' massive weapon ship began charging up for what looked like a final attack. Energy was building up in its center, creating a bright purple glow that could be seen from millions of miles away. All ships, Captain Bennett announced. Long-range sensors indicate that weapon is pointed directly at Earth. If it fires, it will destroy our home planet. The fleet went silent for a moment. Everyone understood what that meant. This was not just about winning or losing a battle anymore. This was about protecting everything they had ever cared about. Lisa's voice came through Jake's personal communicator again, but this time she sounded different. More personal. "Jake," she said, "I need you to know something before we try this next part." "What is it, Lisa?" "Earlier, when you said you wanted to marry someone if you survived this war, and I said yes, I meant it. Not just surviving the war, but everything that comes after. Building a life together. Finding out what happiness looks like when we are not fighting battles." Jake felt his hand steady on his weapon controls. The targeting system was still flickering from the alien interference, but somehow that did not matter anymore. "When I fire my next shot," Jake said into his communicator, "it will not just be for humanity or for Earth, it will be for us." "Yes," Lisa replied, "for us." The alien weapon finished charging and began to aim at Earth. Something strange began happening to the human fleet as the alien weapon prepared to fire at Earth. It started with small things that nobody really noticed at first. In the engine room, Chief Engineer Billy Torres was working on a damaged power converter that should have taken 3 hours to repair, but he was thinking about his wife Maria, who was pregnant with their first child back on Earth. His hands moved faster than they ever had before, and he fixed the problem in 45 minutes. In the medical bay, Dr. Amy Foster was treating a wounded pilot who had been hit by alien weapon fire. Normally, this type of injury would take weeks to heal, but Amy worked with extra care, remembering her own brother who had been hurt in an earlier battle. The pilot was back on duty in 3 days. These small improvements were happening everywhere on every human ship. People were working harder, thinking more clearly, and caring more deeply than they had ever done before. Lisa noticed it first because she was coordinating communication between all the human ships. She could hear it in people's voices when they talked on the radio. The usual military formality was still there, but underneath it was something else. Something personal and determined. "Phoenix Squadron, this is Lisa Chen in communications," she said into her microphone. "I need you to move to a new position, and I know it looks dangerous. But I also know that all of you have families waiting for you to come home. Trust me and trust each other." The response came back immediately. "Copy that, Lisa. Phoenix Squadron moving to new coordinates. We trust you completely. Lisa had never heard that level of confidence in a pilot's voice before. It was not just professional trust, it was personal trust. The kind of trust that people give to family members. Jake was experiencing the same thing at his weapons station. His targeting computer was still having problems because of the aliens' quantum interference, but somehow he was shooting more accurately than ever before. Every time Lisa sent him targeting data, he hit his target perfectly. Every time she asked him to provide cover fire for a rescue operation, he knew exactly where to shoot. Kevin watched Jake work with amazement. I have been your partner for 8 months, he said, and I have never seen you fight like this. It is like you have become a completely different person. Jake did not try to explain that he was fighting for something Kevin might not understand. He was fighting for the possibility of a future with Lisa. Every enemy ship he destroyed was one less threat to that future. Every human ship he protected was one step closer to the life he wanted to build. But the most important change was happening to the fleet as a whole. The human ships began working together in ways that military training had never taught them. It was not about following orders anymore. It was about protecting each other. Captain Bennett saw it from his position on the bridge. Ships that should have been focusing on their own survival were instead helping other ships that were in trouble. Pilots were taking risks to save strangers. Engineers were sharing resources with other ships even when they needed those resources themselves. This is impossible, said Lieutenant Commander Sarah Park, who was monitoring fleet coordination. Look at these efficiency reports. Every single ship is performing above maximum capacity. Our response times are 40% faster than normal. Our accuracy rates are up 60%. Our cooperation scores are off the charts. Captain Bennett nodded. He had been in the military for 20 years and he had never seen anything like this. It is not impossible, he said. It is just human. The alien fleet was beginning to notice that something had changed. Their quantum weapon was still disrupting human technology, but the humans were adapting faster than the aliens had thought possible. Human ships were working together in patterns that the aliens could not predict or counter. The alien commander sent a message to his fleet. Human behavior has become erratic and unpredictable. They are no longer following standard military procedures. Adjust attack patterns to compensate. But there was no way to compensate for what was happening. The aliens were fighting a war using logic and strategy. The humans were fighting a war using logic, strategy, and love. Lisa's voice came through the fleet communication system. All ships, this is your communications officer. I want everyone to remember something. We are not just fighting to win a battle today. We are fighting for the right to go home. We are fighting for the people who are waiting for us. We are fighting for the children who have not been born yet, but will grow up free because of what we do right now. Her words traveled from ship to ship, and something amazing happened. The human fleet began moving as one single organism. Not because someone was giving orders, but because everyone understood what they were protecting. Jake felt it too. As he prepared for what might be the most important shot of his life, he was not thinking about military duty or following orders. He was thinking about Lisa, and about the life they might build together if they survived this battle. The alien's massive weapon was almost ready to fire. Energy was building up in its core, creating a purple glow that was getting brighter every second. In less than 2 minutes, it would release enough power to destroy Earth completely. That was when Captain Bennett made a decision that would be remembered for the rest of human history. All ships, he announced. I'm about to order a maneuver that goes against everything we learned in military school. We are going to attack that weapon ship directly, using our smallest and fastest ships as the main assault force. It should not work. Every military expert would say it is suicide. He paused, and when he spoke again, his voice carried the same personal determination that had been spreading through the fleet. But those experts do not understand what we are fighting for. They do not understand that Jake Morrison is fighting for the woman he loves. They do not understand that Lisa Chen is coordinating this battle like she is protecting her own future family. They do not understand that every single one of you is fighting for something more important than victory. Jake felt his heart beating faster, not from fear, but from hope. They do not understand, Captain Bennett continued, that when humans fight for love, they become capable of impossible things. The final attack began with 12 small human ships flying straight at the massive alien weapon. To anyone watching, it looked like suicide. The alien ship was 50 times larger than the human fighters, and it had enough firepower to destroy a small planet. But Captain Bennett's crazy plan was working. The small human ships were too fast and too unpredictable for the aliens' targeting systems. They flew in patterns that made no sense according to military strategy, but they avoided every shot the aliens fired at them. The alien weapon ship had to choose between charging its main weapon to fire at Earth or using its guns to fight off the attacking human ships. It could not do both at the same time. "All fighters, this is Lisa in communications," Lisa's voice said through the radio. "I am tracking the alien weapon's energy levels. It is at 70% charge and rising. You have maybe 90 seconds before it can fire at Earth." Jake was not in one of the small fighter ships. He was still at his weapon station on the main ship, watching the battle and waiting for his moment. Lisa had told him that there would be one chance, one perfect shot, that could destroy the alien weapon completely. The problem was that the shot would have to be incredibly precise. The alien weapon had a small weak spot in its energy core, but that weak spot was only vulnerable for exactly 1.7 seconds during each charging cycle. Jake would have to hit a target the size of a basketball from a distance of 50,000 miles, at exactly the right moment. "Jake," Lisa's voice came through his personal communicator, "I am sending you the targeting data now, but before you take this shot, I need to tell you something." "Lisa, we do not have time for—" "We always have time for this," she interrupted. "I heard what you said in the observation room, and my answer is yes, not just to surviving this war and getting married. Yes to building a life together. Yes to finding out what happiness looks like when we are not fighting battles. Yes to discovering if humans can be as good at loving as they are at fighting." Jake felt his hands become completely steady on the weapon controls. The targeting data from Lisa appeared on his screen, showing him exactly where and when to fire. "When I take this shot," Jake said into his communicator, "it will not just be for humanity or for Earth, it will be for us. For the future we want to build together." "Yes," Lisa replied, "for us." Jake watched his targeting screen. The alien weapon was at 95% charge. The weak spot in its energy core would become vulnerable in 15 seconds. Around him, the rest of the weapon's crew was watching quietly. They knew that everything depended on this one shot. If Jake missed, the alien weapon would fire at Earth in less than a minute. If he hit it, the explosion would destroy the alien weapon and probably several of the surrounding enemy ships. 10 seconds, Lisa's voice said calmly. Jake took a deep breath. For 6 months he had been thinking about Lisa and wishing he could tell her how he felt. Now he knew she had been thinking about him too. Now he had a reason to make the shot that went beyond military duty. 5 seconds, Lisa said. Jake's finger was on the firing button. His targeting computer was still flickering from the alien interference, but the manual targeting data from Lisa was perfect. 3, 2, 1, now. Jake fired. The energy beam from his weapon traveled 50,000 miles in less than a second. It hit the alien weapon's energy core at exactly the moment the core became vulnerable. For a split second, nothing seemed to happen. Then the massive alien ship exploded in a chain reaction that lit up the darkness of space like a second sun. The explosion was so powerful that it destroyed 3 other alien ships that had been flying nearby. The remaining alien vessels, suddenly realizing that they were facing an enemy they could not understand or defeat, began retreating toward the outer edges of the solar system. The human fleet had won. But Jake barely noticed the victory celebrations that started immediately on every human ship. He was already running through the hallways toward the communications center where Lisa worked. Other crew members were cheering and hugging each other as he passed them. Kevin called after him, asking where he was going. Captain Bennett's voice was announcing their victory over the ship's speaker system. But Jake could only think about one thing. He found Lisa in the communications center taking off her headset and standing up from her workstation. She turned toward the door just as Jake arrived, like she had been expecting him. They met in the middle of the room. For a moment, neither of them said anything. Around them, other communication staff were celebrating and congratulating each other, but Lisa and Jake only saw each other. "So," Jake said, still hardly believing that the battle was over and they were both alive, "I guess we won." "The battle? Yes," Lisa replied, reaching out to take his hands. "But I think we won something else too." "What is that?" Lisa smiled, and it was the most beautiful thing Jake had ever seen. "We won the chance to find out what comes after yes." Jake felt like his heart might explode from happiness. "Does this mean you will really marry me? Even though I asked in the strangest way possible?" "You did not ask," Lisa said, laughing. "You made a wish to an empty room, but yes, I will marry you. I will marry you because you fight for the people you love. I will marry you because you made an impossible shot to protect our future. I will marry you because for 6 months we have both been thinking about each other and hoping for exactly this." They kissed then, right there in the communication center, with victory celebrations happening all around them. It was not the most romantic place for a first kiss, but it was perfect because it was theirs. Later, as the UES Horizon turned toward Earth with news of humanity's greatest military victory, Jake Morrison and Lisa Chen sat together in the observation room where everything had started. They watched the stars and talked about the life they wanted to build together. "What do you think we will do when the war is over?" Lisa asked. "I do not know," Jake said. "But I know we will figure it out together." "Yes," Lisa said, taking his hand together. The word "I" had brought them together, but "yes" would carry them into the future. And as their ship traveled through space toward home, Jake and Lisa discovered that the most powerful force in the universe was not alien technology or human military strategy. It was two people deciding to build a life together one day at a time.